Hi, this is Jim Connor. Welcome to Game Changers X. We are in Tallinn, Estonia today at the Latitude 59 conference, and we're meeting a wide range of people here, entrepreneurs, investors, and many people involved in the community here. I'm with Kathleen Naglee, who is the director of the International School of Estonia, correct?
That's correct.
Right. Now, it happens that education is one of my passions and interests, and I think that education is probably the most important infrastructure play in the world today.
Absolutely.
So I'm really interested. You have a private school, and we all know that the 21st century is putting new demands on our society and really new demands on the education system to produce people who can be contributors to that society.
Right.
So I'll let you give us an overview of your school, the International School of Estonia, and what are you seeing as the current challenges?
Okay. My school is a typical international school that we have international programs, which is the IB program. But what we're doing differently at our school is that we're looking to be an innovative community for the 21st century. And because we're so small, we have the ability to navigate change very quickly. So our school was the first, for example, to do one-to-one iPads 4 years ago and look for creative technology as how it influences children in a positive way. So the greatest challenges at the moment are often coming from the parents. And the reason is that parents believe the education that they received was the best education. And they can't quite understand that how they learned and the methods that they learned are no longer applicable to our current society.
Yeah. You know, that's a very insightful comment. I've heard this only mentioned once or twice, that it is the limitations of the parents' perspective of what education can be, and their perspective is 100% based on their experience of what they went to school and what they were tested on, and therefore they immediately apply that to the child without, unfortunately, any conscious consideration that the world has changed dramatically. When we all went to school, there was no internet. You just didn't have the kind of jobs that you have today. So that's a fascinating perspective you have. Now that brings up some very unique challenges. I'll ask you to give us, what do you see as maybe the top 2 or 3 challenges here? We mentioned this a little bit earlier about test scores and so on like that.
Well, if we believe that the parent model should be perpetuated, then we're focused on testing, overly focused on testing. We're overly focused on knowledge-based repetition of skills, teaching our children low-level computational skills, memorization towards these things. But what the 21st century needs is our students to be highly adaptable, insightful, the ability to problem solve in situations where they've never had opportunities to see such a situation before. This is a completely different approach than what we've learned in before, and our students are ready for this, but society might not be ready to give schools the permission to really make this happen. We talk about 21st century skills, but very few educators are willing to actually implement them in schools because of, I think, society and parental pressure.
This part of Europe has always done very well in test scores. They're very highly rated, and I think what I'm hearing you say is that there's more to it than test scores by far. So with that being a given, and the social skills and the collaboration skills being important, how do you change your program? How do you recruit teachers to? Because I have to believe teachers are also a challenge for you.
Well, the problem with most teachers is that there's a time in their life where they plateau. So they often come in as new teachers who are highly enthusiastic, but maybe don't have the skills to navigate the management of classrooms. So this is just a typical new teacher problem. And so by the time they've navigated management, they've often fallen back onto old methods because busy work, paper, and worksheets keeps kids quiet. So what we often need to find is teachers who understand the dynamics of student learning and of students and their age range as to what is appropriate, and that can still have that great enthusiasm. What I believe in is that teachers need to have a true passion outside of school. This is how we recruit. So when I'm asking a teacher about them coming to school, I'm trying to figure out how they interact with children. So one of the words I'm often looking for is, do they say we we worked on this. So are they seeing themselves as being collaborative with the children? Do they have a fabulous, interesting hobby outside of school? So, for example, my art teacher is the Estonian national archery champion. I teach Ashtanga yoga. My doctorate of chemistry teaches drama. It's this rich outer world that they can bring in with the skills of teen dynamics or 3-year-old dynamics, and being able to create, in my world, a loving environment where they want to learn.
Mm-hmm. It's great, great approach where they want to learn, they engage learning. Yes. We don't know much about your the school year when you get out. Is it a 9-month school year, and is it a? Yeah, I see students in our area get out around 2:30, 2:45. Is it the same? Or?
We have a pretty traditional calendar, although we have a later start, which research is showing this is good for kids. So our day begins at 8:40 for students. It ends at 3:30, although some stay for after-school activities. We go from the end of August to mid-June, 178 days. But we don't believe that, in some schools, the school day has lengthened significantly. I don't believe in that. In this region, we're seen as really out of the norm because up until maybe 5th grade, everyone's done by 1:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, really?
And Finland, which is the leader of all of this, in many schools in elementary end at noon, and they have some of the best scores in the world, but what they really have is incredible rates of literacy.
I see. That's interesting. And how do they, I have to ask you, have such a great literacy rate with such a short school day?
Yeah, well, they believe that it's literacy should come natural, that they shouldn't over teach children. So it's learned in the home. In Finland, for example, the average age of start is 7 years old, which by all of educational research shows is the time to start, not when they're 3 and teaching them calculus. So what happens is that kids often have read in the home with their parents in a loving way. They come to school, already know their letters, already know how to read in many cases. The school day has a lot of breaks. They have 15 minutes between each class for recess, which in America has basically been wiped away in many places. They believe in play-based approach. And what Finland is going to do, even though they've done so well in PISA scores, which is an international test for learning, they are changing their entire upper school curriculum and getting rid of subject areas. And it's going to be all interdisciplinary teaching and project-based teaching. So they're ready to really take the leap. Everyone's going to be following them in the next 10 years.
So I take it you're going to follow this approach by and
We're
large.
kind of doing it already. IB has some aspects to that, maybe not as radical, but we're a small school, so things just happen naturally anyway. So it's very common for kids just to hang out and talk to their teachers and have these kind of conversations.
So you're a private school. Do you have to subscribe to some national or standards here in the country?
Not so much. We're a nonprofit status, so our private school must meet the Estonian Private Schools Act, which is about safety and health and things like this, but not necessarily a curriculum.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I have to ask you, how did you come to this career, if I can...
I originally was a history teacher, and I have a bit of a history of teaching in low-income areas in America. So I taught the Navajo Indians in New Mexico for many years. I then volunteered to teach in Hungary when the changes first happened in this region. And then I went to Southern California in urban, dangerous, guns, drugs kind of schools. And I was lucky enough to go to a job fair in London 15 years or so ago, and I was recruited for Estonia.
Really? That's remarkable.
Yeah.
And you picked up Hungarian language or the Estonian language? Or
I learned a bit of Hungarian, although it's gotten rusty, and then the Estonian is something I've been working on for many years.
Yeah. But that's great, moving around and having that diversity. It gives you such a rich background to draw upon.
Yes.
So what do you think is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years? Is it a gradual continuation? You continue to improve on the process, or Are there any, I don't want to call them speed bumps, but any challenges coming up? Europe's got a lot of new people coming in here, immigration-wise, refugees and all that type of stuff. Is that putting particular pressures on the education system?
It's not putting pressures on us in particular, but our school is trying to lead the way about teaching about diversity here in Estonia, because it's a concept that is new to this community. This is a challenge for Europe with the refugee crisis, for sure. The international schools have kind of known this model for many years.
Well, Kathleen, I want to thank you. This has been a delightful and a very insightful conversation. For people who are watching the show, might like to follow up with you. Is there some contact information you'd like to provide?
Well, you're absolutely welcome to come to Estonia for sure, but you can always contact me at naglee at gmail.com. Also, the school, International School of Estonia, I'm the director isc.edu.ee.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you very much. I really enjoyed the conversation. We'll have to keep in touch. I want to hear what comes of the school here in the next couple of years.
I would love to collaborate with what you're doing back in the Valley.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Terrific. Thank you.
This is Jim Connor. Thank you for joining us for this segment of Game Changers X. You can follow us on our website, gamechangers.tv, Facebook, or Twitter. We look forward to your continued interest and participation in upcoming shows.